Okay, I think we're good to go now. So once again, to everyone who's been with us for a couple of minutes now, welcome to the next installment of our Atlassian in Scotland webinar series. My name is Chris, and today's session will be about the Refined app. So let us kick off the session. So today's webinar series is about the Refined app available for Jira and Confluence. And Refine is a simple site building tool. Let us talk you through a little bit of housekeeping first. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of introductions. We have two speakers for today's webinar. Then we're going to have a customer success story. We're going to have a Refined demo from the Refined vendor. And then we're going to proceed to a Q&A session at the end. So for everyone's benefit, Zoom and the app that you're currently in has a Q&A facility. Please feel free to open that now and use that throughout the session. Feel free to post any questions that you would like answered about the Refined app. For our panelists, you're free to answer those questions as they come in, or if you would like to leave the question and answer it live at the end, we can do that at the end. Please signal that through the app, and then we'll take it forward from there. So let's do some intros. My name is Chris. I'm head of operations at Verve, and I've cut my teeth doing various kinds of Atlassian implementation. At Verve, we are an Atlassian solution partner, and we're also a Refined partner. Next, we've got Peter Hinds. Peter is head of operations at Synergy Learning. And Peter is going to talk about how Synergy have used Refined to both solve the challenges with ITSM and also demonstrate the value that Refined has added to Synergy as an organization. And then finally, we have Genevieve Blanch, who is the partner manager at Refined. Genevieve is going to talk a little bit more about Refined, what it is as a solution, what benefits it can give you in terms of solving your ITSM challenges, both in terms of the styling available in the app, the infrastructure, capabilities, etc. And then finally, we'll see some live demo of Refined to see how it works in practice. Once again, don't forget to post any questions that you might have in the Q&A session, and we'll answer them either throughout or at the end. So without further ado, let's kick off with the solution demo from Peter at Synergy. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks very much, Chris. So, hi everyone. My name is Peter Hinds. I work at Synergy Learning as head of operations. Also virtually with us today is Emer Corrigan. Emer is one of our UX developers who has implemented and developed the Refined theme within our Confluence. So Emer will be available to pick up any of the questions that are related to development if you'd like any further information on those. So Synergy Learning are a full service learning technology provider. We've been a Moodle partner since 2005. We've been a Tutor Platinum partner since 2011. And more recently, we became a Moodle Premium partner, which includes the ability to provide Moodle Workplace. Broadly speaking, it's similar to what the Atlassian partners are for the Atlassian products. It's a selection of some of the customers that we've been fortunate enough to work with. And today, we're here to speak about how we've used Refined theme with our Confluence and our Jira Service Desk within our IT service management. So for us, the ITSM really at its core, it's all about helping our customers. And in order to help, you need to have accessible and detailed information on the subject matter. We have a large number of customers, each with their own unique requirements, and we have various internal processes and workflows to aid in the smooth delivery. And several years back, when Verve first conducted an audit of our Atlassian stack, we used Jira Bitbucket and Confluence, and one of the recommendations they made was to make use of the refined theme. The feature that drew us in was sites, but overall it's the flexibility and the power of the app that's kept us as happy customers. Our Confluence has two key use cases. The use of sites functionality has allowed us to give each of these its own unique branding. Internal to Synergy Learning, we have a site that we call Aloha. This contains everything from our HR policies to technical how-tos to the workflows and processes and everything in between. We also have a second site for our customer documentation. And we always try to share these documents openly within the company for the obvious reasons of knowledge sharing and training purposes. And those of us that were involved in our conference, we felt we've made a lot of progress, and 2020 really proved it. We find that the good practices we had with documentation stood us in good stead with the transition to the full remote working for the majority of the year. In our Aloha site, you can see that our company values are front and center. It's good for new people to see these, and it's a nice reminder for us old hands as well. During 2020, one of our greatest challenges was the hiring and onboarding process in a fully 100% remote environment. Previously, even for those based remotely, there was some form of on-site element to this. We had a number of recruitments, so something relatively simple, such as having your company values at the fore, it helped with this process. We link out to popular areas from the homepage. You can see here our one team directory. This would be one of the first ports of call for new people to learn a little bit about each of us. We use the HTML module for our values. This is what it looks like within the refined configuration. You can pick out the key values there throughout it. We added several sections with a varying number of columns, depending on the layout requirements. This is just one example. And we used the navigation icon to load the images. As we go a level deeper, we're now within the operations category home. We have icons to represent the spaces contained within. We've again used the HTML module to achieve the responsiveness. And the top section is using the search highlight. And this is what it looks like within the refined configuration area as well. So to look at that responsiveness in a bit more detail, we have several sections which display different layouts throughout different numbers of columns. This is the initial layout that you saw on the previous slides. This is a more compact layout. And then this is an even more compact layout, which would be used on a mobile browser, for example. We trigger which layout to use through some custom CSS in the theme. And this is what makes the layout responsive to the user's device and the resolution that they're running at. This is the landing page for our client sites. It's a category home within refined theme. This isn't a standard Confluence space. We've used the HTML module to achieve this layout. Generally speaking, our approach would be to check what's available within the refined theme. But if there's not something that quite fits what we're looking to do, we can fall back to something like the HTML module to achieve our requirements. So let's take a look at the alphabet grid in a bit more detail. This is a HTML module within the category home. This is used to achieve the layout we want with some accompanying custom CSS. You can look through, you can see the letters, etc., beginning there within the HTML. Search in our Confluence isn't popular with our users. They find it too verbose in the results and perhaps too picky for the search terms required to get the information they want. And although you can toggle tick boxes to restrict to just finding spaces, for example, we find users generally default back to navigation. So we tried to make this as simple as possible. While it is arguably a few extra clicks, we found the alphabet grid to be popular for navigating the large number of customers. Each letter links to a category home, and then the customer spaces are contained within those. Although customer information is unique to that customer, we've found a set number of categories works for us. These are the technical documents, the proposals and scoping, the meeting notes, the contract reports. You can note our link out to EasyBI, which is the reporting engine we use within Jira. And then we have project-specific areas, and content should be moved here as soon as these areas exist. It does take quite a bit of effort to keep the documentation well organized. There is training required for everyone that's using Confluence, and there is some cleanup required, as inevitably people will store a document in the slightly incorrect location, but it does lessen over time. And we find this layout for our customers with refinements over time. It allows us to have that information organized and easily found. So each customer space is created manually, and then the contents, the blank contents are manually copied. This includes all of the subpages. These are copied from a space that we've named SL template. It's not a true template, but rather an area where we can be sure it's the configuration that we want. We then can copy that information into the customer space. And if you note on screen the various text here contained within this, this text is added in the advanced settings at the end of the HTML tag using a jQuery script to achieve the bold text for the keywords. Next, we'll look at the UI children cards in a bit more detail. Please don't get overly lost within CSS snippets being displayed if you're not overly familiar with that. The purpose of this is to demonstrate the power of what you can achieve with a bit of developer know-how. This is one of the places where Emer's skills came to the fore. We have various options here where we have number labeled out that we have number 1. This displays the custom icon and the ability to integrate with the Font Awesome library. We have number 2, where the customizing the background color of the icon and adding a hover animation for the card title, i.e. the name of the page that it's going to bring you to. At number 3, this covers the general card styling. It defines the spacing, the text sizes, the responsive widths of the cards, and adds a shadow hover animation. Number 4, this styles the page title as the main text within the card. At number 5, this modifies existing functionality of displaying who made the last edits to a page. We moved the user avatar and added some custom text and styling. And finally, number 6, as shown in the previous slide, this adds the custom text and styling and emboldens the key text contained within it. The net result was that we were able to go from the default styling, this is with as it is, and then with our custom styling applied, we were able to transform it into this within our Confluence. The site builder contained within the refined administration area makes the management of categories and spaces extremely easy. We were able to use this to organize both of our sites. And you can see in this example, our organization, there's a lot of customers here, beginning with A. So this quickly became a drag and drop exercise that was easy to do. In a small amount of time, we had a well-organized Confluence with all the spaces sitting within their desired category. So the ability to create themes was a key consideration in the original decision to choose Refined for Confluence. We created a theme that was in line with our brand. And since the initial implementation, our company has went through a rebrand. but thankfully it was very easy to update our theme to match. And the options in the theme styling really allowed us to choose the layout that was fit for our needs. As you've seen, we've been able to make use of custom HTML and custom CSS to really hone in on the things to make it more bespoke and personal. Using the different navigation settings for the category menus, global menus, and global footers, we were able to place the navigation items in the places to easily navigate and make best use of the space. This is the category menu, and this is an example of it in action. It lines up with the icon here. The global menu is aligned down the right-hand side of the page for minimal impact. And finally, at the global footer, this just contains the Synergy Learning logo for it being displayed at the end of the pages. So to keep consistency within our sites, we were then able to utilize space layouts and the homepage layouts. This meant that any new space created followed a specific layout. The consistency of this allows our team to easily navigate and find information without confusing or differing layouts. We also make use of Refined for Jira on our service desks. This is, of course, now rebranded as Jira Service Management. However, we're still on server and old habits die hard, so I'll refer to this as Jira Service Desk throughout just purely for my own use to avoid tripping up over my words. We keep it really simple for our customers. We provide support, we have professional services, and we have a GDPR-related subject access request. For legacy reasons, the majority of our customers email into Jira Service Desk, and this is something we're really desperate to change. And being able to style the service desk has helped increase use of the portal already. And we've been live with that for about 6 months or so now, maybe a little longer. But we've still a long way to go. But it's fair to say the theme has certainly helped. And we've a big goal for this year to really increase the usage of the portal. So what did we do within our theme in Service Desk? Well, first thing we did was, we set the button colors. This was configured via the extras settings in the theme. This is defined for the buttons that are added to the content layout module. For the general layout, the main appearance top was selected. This allowed for a very clean white layout using the full page. We used the navigation highlight module to add our very own custom background and a personalized welcome text for each user. If you're familiar with Belfast, you may recognize the local landmark of the Harland and Wolff cranes. And you would see these if you fly into Belfast City Airport. And that's, of course, the shipyard where the Titanic was built. I've personally never been quite convinced that using an image similar to Titanic is the best choice for customer service. But as a design choice, it does bring a bit of local flavor to the mix. We used content modules to allow us to add 3 call to actions on the main page, directing the customer to the correct area for their request. And this is what it looks like within the refined configuration. The custom CSS snippet. This custom CSS snippet performs a few tasks in relation to the navigation content. Application support is an example of this. So this CSS will remove the light gray background that appears on hover. So it now always has a white background. It adds a dark gray hover with a CSS transition effect to the button. And the button background doesn't just switch on and off, it fills up and drains away depending on the mouse over or not. It's a really nice effect just within the CSS. And finally, the CSS also changes the text color on the hover, so it becomes a white color, so that it's legible against the dark gray background. Well, future plans. I imagine lots of people are saying this at the moment, but moving to the Atlassian Cloud seems like the likely destination for synergy learning. And that will bring with it its own challenges in relation to all the work that we've done within the various applications, but it's something we're looking forward to. We started researching automating the space creation process, but we've paused in this, given the cloud move, the investment in time and development effort on the server edition isn't appealing at the moment. And the responsive tact we've taken works very well for us, but it's not particularly manageable with regards to any edits or changes you need to make. For example, changing a link needs to be updated in X number of places, depending on how many variations you have. So that is everything from me for now. Just wanted to say a thanks to Genevieve and the Refined for producing such a great product. And thanks very much to New Verve Consulting for giving us the opportunity to speak with you all today and share with what we've developed. So with that, I'll hand back over to Chris. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Peter. That was great. I think your practical use case really gives people the idea of what a sort of fully built out, refined environment can look like. And hopefully people are not too scared about the various technical elements that you've included in your presentation that allowed you to have this sort of effect overall. I think it would be useful to hear from Genevieve now, just to give us an idea of what Refined can do out of the box, as well as when you really put some time and patience into it. So without further ado, we will now pass over to Genevieve to give us the demo of Refined and to talk a little bit more about the capabilities of the tool. Over to you, Genevieve.
Great, thank you. I can see one of the questions that has come in is about planning to migrate to cloud and DC. So maybe Peter and I can address that again at the end. He mentioned he's looking into cloud, and I'm actually going to demo the cloud product today. So hopefully you'll get a bit of a taste. And I'll try to cover some of the differences that we have between server and cloud as we go. So you'll get the idea of that. But yeah, that is an excellent introduction to my part from Peter. I think he knows the product possibly better than we do. So thanks so much for sharing that, Peter. And I'm going to share my own screen now. So I'll go for my whole desktop so I can do the demo. And let's start here. Okay. Okay, so I'm mostly going to be focusing on our Jira Service Management app today. Peter's mostly showed the Confluence side, but if you know how one refined app works, you tend to know how the other works because there's a lot of core features across the two. And I thought it'd be a good idea just to explain what apps we have, because it can be a bit confusing. So what Peter showed you was refined for Confluence, which we have on both cloud and server. And he was taking you into more of a deep dive to the refined for Confluence server data center product. I'll also briefly show you the cloud version of that today. And our other principal app is refined for Jira, which is more the focus of my presentation today. And Peter also briefly touched on that. So this is the way that you make this customer-facing portal themed. And as Peter mentioned, the site and the way you reorganize your Jira projects, or if in Confluence case, the way you reorganize your spaces is a really key part of our app offering. So it was really nice to hear from Peter that he likes that. But yeah, a quick intro to our company. So we're a Swedish company based with headquarters in Malmö, Sweden, and also a second office in Helsinki. I'm actually Australian, which is probably obvious to the Scots in the audience. and I live in London. So we're a bit all over now, but mainly operating out of Malmö in Sweden. And I thought I'd take us back to a long, long time ago when we could take aeroplanes and fly places. And this was, I'm thinking especially of last year in April 2019 when we packed up our apps and some of our team flew over to the US to go to the Atlassian Summit. And something that we love about summits, and it's a real shame that we haven't been able to do this year, is that we get to meet with customers like Peter and learn about how they use our apps. Because we're a bit of a low touch company, we don't always get a lot of interaction directly with customers. So that's why it's really wonderful again to see Peter's presentation. But yeah, so this was us in Vegas last year, and in particular at Vegas last year, IT service management was a very hot topic, and we learned a lot from our customers about the struggles they'd had with it and some workarounds. So I'm going to share some of those today. But yeah, I thought I would bring us back to 2020. And I think it was actually right about when New Verve's event was in Scotland when I had my train booked to go up and meet with a lot of wonderful people up there, but unfortunately all got cancelled. And then we started speaking to customers more often through this screen right in front of me, which looks a bit like this. Yes. Anyway, the point is, when we speak to customers, we hear about some common issues when it comes to IT service management. Maybe Peter can relate to some of these. The first one being that often some companies have too many systems in place. So the end users, when they need to request help, don't know which way to do it. So there's too many ways of doing it. There's also the default to email, which can be really hard work for the people on the receiving end of those emails, as you probably know. And we also heard a lot about generally end users trying to get help, having to think too hard about it, and then just not using the system that was in place. So Jira Service Management alone is a pretty good tool to solve some of these issues. I'm guessing a lot of you are already using this tool. But yeah, so then we get to the refine part. So the issues that refine probably solves on top of what Jira Service Management solves are these deeper issues, including when, say, a customer might have more than one service desk portal in their solution, it can be difficult for the end user to navigate to the right place. And then, so with our apps, you can restructure the navigation to make this easier. And the second thing would be, navigating to the incorrect place to get help. So with Refined, you can really add context around a service desk portal by adding sort of titles, documentation, just making it really clear about the context that you're on. And the third one is about users sort of not engaging with the service and generally the user experience not being up to a good standard. So these are three things that I think Refined is pretty good at addressing. And here you can see kind of an example of a more visual example of how we do it. But one key way that we solve the confusion and the navigation is that you can reorganize with Refined's navigation infrastructure. So you can reorganize projects into a new navigation. So for example, in that first image, you'll see in that example, we would have service desk projects in a drop-down menu. I think in Peter's case, I didn't have a close enough look. They might have been using a breadcrumb menu, which is also an option. But the point is, you're not just stuck with this one navigation structure. You can redo your site, which means you can make it much simpler for the end user. And I mentioned about adding the context. So this is where the theme comes in as well. So you can apply your brand and you can add things within a context that are relevant and helpful to the user. And yeah, and that means hopefully that both the technical and non-technical users will engage with the service and want to come back to it. And this is now the fun part, because I'm going to actually go in and show you how you can do this. And I'll, like, as a reminder, so this is a cloud, a refined on cloud example. And the first thing I should explain with our cloud solutions is instead of refined acting as kind of a skin that sits on top of your Atlassian platform, be it Confluence or Jira, refined exists as its own SaaS platform parallel to Jira and Confluence. So here, for example, in front of me, we've got a Jira project that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And from here, I would navigate to refined. And this opens up the admin section in Jira. But if I go to refine configuration, you'll see we've actually opened up now in refine's own parallel platform. So with our cloud solution, we integrate Jira, Jira Service Management, and Confluence into our own platform, whereas on server, we're sitting on top, if that makes sense. All right, so what I thought we could do today is create an ITSM solution. I've prepared a demo, a site earlier, but normally what you do is just add a site in here, call it, I don't know, ITSM amazing solution or whatever it is, and then the domain will be configured. A neat feature of our cloud solution is each of these sites. So you can either just have, by default, you'll just have the one site solution, but on cloud and on server, you can have multiple sites. Peter also explained this example with his Confluence instance because they had a client-facing site and a non-client facing site. So it's the same on cloud. So these would be their existing sites. And yeah, the bonus on cloud is that each of these sites could have your own custom domain. So that's something that you can't do in native Atlassian apps, but you can with us. So anyway, let's pretend I just created this ITSM site, but right now it's a very empty site. The configuration section is where I could add my custom domain logo. Here I can select the menu style, and I could add a few, like an announcement banner in there, for example. There's a few other things, fun things you can play around with. There's the CSS and HTML section, which Peter was using in his example. Okay, but the main part I want to show you today is this site builder section. So right now, if I show you what an empty site looks like, it's just simply this. So here you just see very empty looking, uninteresting site. And so the first thing we want to do is add in content. So we click add new, and you can add a page, which is equivalent to what we call a category on server. So this essentially means a landing page where you can aggregate your content. So in this case, we might add a page and we'll call it an IT service page. We'll save that. And then I might add in some service desk projects. So in this one is a Decibel service desk. So here you can see my existing Confluence spaces, but in this case, we're focusing on the service desk projects. So I'm going to add equipment to this, as well as IT, general support, and the incident support projects. So I want them all added here, and then I would simply drag them to, so that they're now going to be children portals organized into this navigation under IT service. So if, for example, you only had one service desk portal, you probably don't need to use this category. You could simply just add Atlassian content again, and I'll use my Decibel example. And here, let's try the HR support. They don't need a landing page, so that could just sit there directly in the menu. And actually, I've accidentally added a Confluence project. So let's add a Jira Service Management project instead. Here we go. All right, so now I'm going to navigate to the customer facing side to show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is the Help Center home. We've got our links to our existing portals, which are now living under this category, and we've got the Decibel HR support portal also in the menu there. And let's go to this category home, or the page home, so IT service. So this is where maybe you might want to add some context to make it really clear. And because this is the IT service page home, you can use this to build up any helpful information that might stop the users from even filing a request in the first place. So the way you do this, and Peter showed this in his presentation, but the way you would do this is you add content section like so, and then you can select from a bunch of what we call modules to build up your page. So in this case, if we have Confluence also connected, then we might add some Confluence pages. We can do that just for fun. But actually, I think I need to add Confluence first. Or what we might do is add some neat navigation. Maybe you want to link to some documentation. So Peter actually showed a similar look to this, which he built with HTML. It doesn't have all the features he had on his, but you can, as a sort of card look you can create. So I'll show you that now. And this might be like, let's call it link 1. And we'll just add a fake link there. And we'll add a second one. Link 2. And you can play around with the colors. You can make a background image for it. There's a lot of fun to be had. And I'll just drag that up to the top there. Oops. All right. And then I could preview it, but I'm going to be bold and see what kind of solution I've now created. Okay, so here you'll see we've got 2 links, and we've got some Confluence pages connected here. But yeah, what you put on this page home is entirely up to you. And then from the actual request view, here you can see, you're probably familiar with how this looks. The My Request page looks more like this. So here you can see it's the same as what you see in Jira Service Management actually, but you've got your brand on the outside. And one feature I see quite often is, for instance, here on maybe the IT service home, rather than having to navigate to My Request, you could actually add another module which we'll call which is called My Request, and then you add the name of the service desk portal in there. I think this one was, actually we've got 3 in here, but we can only show 1, so let's show number 11. And then there you can see we've got My Request displayed directly on that page. So that's a common one that you can work with. Okay, now before I jump back into the presentation, I just want to show you one last thing in the refined admin section. So here we've only added service desk projects, but if you want to also include Confluence content, this is also possible. You just have to make sure that you have to buy 2 apps in that case. So you have to buy Refine for Confluence and Refine for Jira, but on cloud. So you buy 2 separate apps, but they exist in the one refined platform. So that's the reason why in this ITSM demo site, I can add Confluence content as well. All right. So I'm going to jump back into my keynote now. And I thought I'd finish. We've had a lot of really good already had a really good customer example today, but this is another one from a customer called ISS Global Services, if you've heard of it. And this is a really interesting one because they have an enormous solution. So Refined can either service, I guess, a smaller, more simple solution, or it can service the really big customers. So in this case, there's 400,000 global employees, and they're accessing this one service desk solution. And for ISS World, their original problem was similar to the problems we often hear, that they basically had too many systems, and every new employee brought their favorite tool to use, and it was just a mess. And when you're trying to service 30 countries, this is not easy to deal with. So what they wanted to do was bring these processes and service points into the one single source of truth. That's the buzzword. And they were able to do this with Refined because of that added infrastructure. So in the end, I'll show you a little preview of their solution. So this is their help desk home. So this is where you would enter as an end user to report your issues. And then, for example, you can see the navigation icon at the top there. So they would link to a certain category or landing page within the site. And then if I scroll down here, you'll see links to various service desks. So this is a really clever way of working if you have multiple service desks. So you can display the service desk request types directly on the front page. And then we have within that layout editor, you can customize each section so that it only shows to a group of users. So in this case, if I'm a Spanish user and I logged in here, I would only see this Spain service desk option. I wouldn't see Sweden, I wouldn't see Mexico. I would see my request and request type. So it's just a really good way of controlling the content and only showing what's relevant to the end user there. And yeah, this was a nice quote that we got that I think summarizes the use case nicely. Yeah, explaining that the end users really found this easy to engage with, and they were able to access the content that helped them. Okay, so these are the two apps I've mostly shown today. So Refined for Jira Cloud or Refined for Jira Data Center. Peter has shown you the other one, which is Refined for Confluence. So there's a lot of fun to play around with. But as I mentioned, so if you do go down the cloud route, there's still two different apps you need to buy, but they exist on the one platform. And if you go down the data center route, there are two different apps you need to buy once again, but they exist on top of the Atlassian platforms. All right. I think we probably have already been through this slide, so we'll jump to Q&A if we have time for that.
That's perfect. Thanks very much, Genevieve, for the very practical demo. I hope, having seen the kind of point and click configuration. Hello, everyone. Just double checking if everyone can hear me. I think we had a little bit of a connection problem there, but we're back on. So just to summarize Genevieve's presentation, thanks very much, Genevieve, for the practical demo. I think people can kind of rest at ease, having seen the point and click kind of style of configuration that you demonstrated. So Peter's version focused much more on kind of growing out the solution and making it very sort of customized with CSS, etc. Whereas your solution or your demo has shown us that you can just configure Refined using this sort of point and click style of configuration without worrying too much about the nitty-gritty upfront. Thanks very much also for the note about scalability. I think that's a very useful thing to know, that the SaaS solution for Refined Cloud can scale that much based on the kind of practical use case that you've had.
I don't know if the video is working now.
So without further ado, I think we can just jump into the questions, I think, coming in, and about 10 minutes to do them.
Hi, everybody. So it's Nigel here, CEO, and just double check that you can hear me. Genevieve, you can maybe nod. I can see you here on my screen. Okay, brilliant. So Chris has just been having some technical issues with his connection, so sincere apologies for that. What I will do, Lauren, I don't think I've got the controls here, but can you unmute all the panelists and we can maybe open up to Q&A, please? Okay, so I think we've got people unmuted. So I think we can just fire into Q&A. I didn't quite catch what Chris was saying there, so again, apologies. I actually had sent through 2 questions myself. We'll maybe start with you, Genevieve, just since you've just finished your presentation. So I was going to say that lots of our customers here at Verve are in the process of planning their migrations, either from self-hosted, so from server to the cloud. So we're aware that you've got a dedicated migration center to help refine customers with migration, but can you provide any other information, advice, or even reassurance to other attendees here about potential migration to cloud?
Yeah, happy to. So you're right, we have a migration site, which is migration.refine.com. And there you'll see pathways and also a feature comparison across hosting. And on top of that, I can say if you're using a lot of different apps with your Atlassian platforms, then you're probably better placed to go to data center. If you're not relying on having multiple apps, then definitely look at the cloud solution. Yeah, we're feeling pretty comfortable about the announcement because we've been building cloud solutions now for about 4 years. Yeah. Having said that, our server and data center apps are much more mature. I think that's probably true for everyone on the marketplace, but our cloud apps are pretty close behind, and there are some pros and cons with each. And just, I can also answer a second question, which is similar from Jamie, which is about how difficult it will be to migrate themes and configuration over. I can't tell you really well the answer to that, but I know we have information on this already on the migration site. So go have a look there. And if you do have trouble or it's not clear, then you can always contact our support service or speak to the guys at Verve. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that. And unfortunately, because I was promoted to host here, I can't actually see the question. So I'll just ask my next one. And then what I'll do is I'll maybe ask you both, Peter, Genevieve, and maybe Emer, just to pick up the rest of the ones that have come through the course of the webinar. What I was going to say, actually, Peter, so just in relation again to the migration challenges. So I'm just wondering, is that something you're kind of looking at now? I guess you're having conversations with the team at Verve already about migration.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking like that's going to be a key thing for us across the year ahead. We'll probably flow in the order of Confluence first and then Jira. Confluence is mostly for us internal facing. So it feels slightly less risky for us to move that, whereas Jira and our Jira Service Desk, Jira Service Management is very much customer facing. So big challenges ahead there next year.
Yeah. Okay. Question. So before I hand over to you guys, you can maybe pick up those questions. A question for Emer. So what would you say the kind of the biggest challenges were for you developing the theme for Refined, and did it take much effort?
In terms of challenges, I think Refined made it really, really easy for us to do it, getting a hands-on approach. Probably the best thing about it was that there's so much documentation online. So if I had any concerns or I didn't know how to do this thing or something was new, I could just pop online, get the answer, go back and implement any decisions. Knowing that maybe some of the features that we wanted maybe to be more bespoke towards us were probably just the trickier parts, but having that in-house experience and knowledge to be able to do that and made those absolutely fine.
Yeah, okay, that's good to hear. Okay, so I'll maybe just hand over to you. Sorry, go on, Tim.
Wanted to add to that, those 3 things you mentioned at the end. There was the space automation. I think, and I can't remember the other two. But we have been asked about that space automation before, and I think there is a workaround to making it happen. So I'll try and dig that up for you. Yeah, but I can't remember the other two things. But yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for that, Emer. So really just hand over Peter and Genevieve. Do you want to go through any other questions that might have come through that I can't see on my screen here?
Sure. In terms of the amount of effort, it was over many, many months we developed it, but in terms of raw figures of what we put in, it was probably about 5 to 6 weeks worth of effort, split over probably the larger part of a year, I would imagine. That is heavily weighted towards learning the product from the beginning. Any updates we've subsequently made have obviously been much quicker as our product knowledge has increased. And as Genevieve referenced, if you know one product, you generally can pick up the other very quickly. So our service desk implementation was much quicker whenever we reached that.
Yeah, and I guess from our perspective as well, from working with customers, it really just varies depending on customer requirements ultimately and what you want to do.
Yeah.
So we've got a really simple theme for our service desk at New Verve, and I think it only took us a couple of days, but we stuck to the absolute basics. And I know that we're working on another couple of things with other customers, and they're taking a lot more. So it ultimately depends on what you want to do.
And I think I was thinking one thing that Synergy Learning did really well that I think is a good example for other customers as well. So because they've used their multiple sites, so Peter mentioned he showed the client site and is it your internal site, the other one?
That's right.
Yeah. So basically that's a huge cost saver as well. So if you're a customer who is looking to go to data center and you're aware of the increased cost with that, one solution is to reduce your instances. So rather than having 2 Confluence instances, you can put that on 2 refined sites connected to the one Confluence instance. And it's the same with the Jira product. So we have a customer I saw recently who have a really cool solution with Refine for Jira, and they use it just as an ITSM normal site. But this year, because of coronavirus, they added an additional site, and it was their crisis portal, essentially. So they could use that as an almost HR access point to ask questions, to read about office updates, like can we go into the office, can we not? And once you've got the hang of how to build one site, it's very easy to find more uses for that. I hope that's true anyway.
Yep. Cool. So I'm aware of the time. It's obviously 2 o'clock, but are there any other questions you'd like to respond to just for the next minute or so? Don't know if any other questions have come through.
No, nothing further from me. Thanks, Nigel.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just share some contact information. So I think if you do want to get in touch, there are details. So info@newverve.scot. I think this is the demo site, the URL that Chris has had it. So it's just worth pointing that out, that there is a demo site provided by Refined. And just follow that link and check it out. And then obviously, just reach out to ourselves or Refined if you need more information. So big thanks to everybody involved today. So thanks, Peter. Thanks, Emer. Thanks, Genevieve. Massive thank you to everybody who's joined. Apologies again for the technical issues. I guess this is one of the risks of doing these live. We started off doing them kind of semi-live, pre-recorded. So we'll see what we do for the next one, but we got there in the end. So thanks again, everybody, and we shall see you at the next event. If you keep an eye on the website and Twitter, LinkedIn, we should be announcing the next event quite soon, hopefully before Christmas. So we'll keep you posted. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you very much, New Verve team.
Everyone.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.